Time is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. Further details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.com.
The award-winning It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
Now, I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Baas McClelland.
And this is...
It's Movie Time!
Linda,
John.
the Russians are coming.
Oh, dear.
Well, anyway, the Russians have been here for a long time.
Yeah,
and in cinema, they've been here since the beginning of the last century. But right now we have two fine representations of that in Leviathan and Red Army. Well, first, let's look at Leviathan. What's that about, Linny?
Oh, dear. It's a sad tale about corruption and drunken people swilling bottles of vodka after bottles of vodka.
Lots of vodka.
It takes place on the northern coast of Putin's post-Soviet Russia.
Right.
The main character is Kolya, and he is a vodka-swilling, chain-smoking mechanic living a quiet life until the corrupt mayor tries to take over his property.
Yeah. And Gabe Polsky, who is the director of this film, has done, as far as I'm concerned, a beautiful job of showing a landscape that is bleak and yet also kind of timelessly beautiful. In this, for me, is a soap opera of truly Russian epic proportions. You have people like Kolya, his wife Lila,
yes,
and a buddy Demi, who is an attorney, and they're fighting a locally corrupt mayor.
Oh, yeah, he's a mess.
To keep poor Kolya's property that he built himself on the sea.
Right.
And do you consider it as beautiful as I do, Lenny?
I think it was beautifully filmed. I thought the whole landscape was so depressing that I saw the beauty in it. But he just kept focusing on everything that was falling apart, decaying. The beautiful skeleton of the whale was breathtaking.
Check out that beautiful image. That's really the advertisement for this film.
Right.
It's wonderful, great.
But all the buildings are falling apart, and it's so depressing. You're gonna hear me say that word a lot right now.
Well, the Soviet Union has fallen apart, and I think it kind of metaphorically works that way. And the Politburo dominated politics, even down to the eminent domain situation that he's involved in, is itself decaying and corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still there.
Yes.
And Kolya has to fight it.
Right.
So I like those images.
Right. The only entertaining thing for me in the movie, because I thought it was bloated and overlong. It just went on and on and on.
I don't think you liked it, Lindy.
I did not like it at all. There was an entertaining scene that was a confrontation between Kolya and the corrupt, very drunk mayor. This actor had to truly be drunk when they were filming the scene.
Good.
Because you watched his eyes roll up in his head, and their eyes are crossing, and he's trying so hard to remain standing. He had to be truly drunk when they were filming. But I thought that was kind of interesting.
And so we have a definite difference of opinion on this. I'm going to go first with the grade for this one.
Okay.
All right. And I'm awarding it an A.
Okay.
Linda Baas McClelland, it's called Leviathan. What's your grade?
I give it a D. It was just so depressing and grim that at one point I sat there thinking, I could be home doing my taxes right now.
Well, Linda, then I'm so glad we're looking at Red Army.
Yay.
Because this is about, again, a kind of historical perspective, but this is a documentary about the great Russian hockey system.
Right.
And again, we have the influence of the central politics in Russia. It always does. In this case, they see hockey as a propaganda activity.
It's a symbol of Soviet Russia at the time, right? It was Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
When the film starts to.
Yeah, we were talking way back 50s and 60s.
Yeah, when the film starts.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be a hockey fan or even a sports fan to be caught up by this.
Linda, are you telling me you like this Russian film?
I love this.
Wow.
The lines 3 miles long of little Russian boys waiting to try out for the Red Army training camp, which was run by a very roly-poly man named Tarazov.
Yeah.
And under his guidance, the children learn to play hockey that's almost like ballet.
In fact, they bring in the Bolshoi to help them with their movements.
Right, with the strategy of chess.
Ah, and chess too, isn't
but
it?
He made it look fun. I mean, he was dancing around with the kids, and he made it fun.
Brilliant. And he made it world class.
Right.
The star of this, Linda, is Fetisov, otherwise known as Slava.
Right, Slava Fetisov.
And he is a most charismatic hockey player, world renowned. Right. I think even more than Wayne Gretzky.
Probably the best defenseman to ever play the game.
Yes.
Really.
So he has moved on to Putin politics. So there's a little bit of his testimony here that has to be, you have to see what his influences are. But basically, he's a pretty tough guy.
He's a cool guy. He's not always cooperative with the interviewer. He sits there with his cell phone looking at it. Yeah,
when he gets bored, he pulls up his cell phone and starts and otherwise. And he was, am I correct, he was really mute about the loss of the 1980 Olympics.
Yes.
He didn't say, although you could see on his face the pain.
Right.
He wouldn't tell you, this is one tough one.
And this is, I have a question for you. At the time, the team was coached by just this dreadful man named Tikhonov.
Yeah.
And he didn't respect the players. He treated them cruelly. How do you think their dislike of this coach had any influence on this 1980 loss that made
Linda.
Sports history?
Oh, Linda, that's a very piercing question, because I'm so troubled by the fact that this documentary does not deal with the causes and effects and leaves you to infer what you had said.
Point.
Yeah, and that, while I don't know, maybe because the documentary is more of an historical perspective, I shouldn't demand that. I'll have to go back to the film. The docudrama starring Kurt Russell.
Miracle on Ice.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. And the Miracle, which tries to show you the 1980 and show you, because the answer to this is why did the Russians lose, is perhaps not just because of their attitude toward the coach, but because the Americans were young, excellent
bunch of
college kids who had the advantage of not having been corrupted at all by any system. And perhaps that's part of that mix, but it is an enigma to me. And yet, you would say, Lindy, that this film is truly worthy of being seen?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because Tikhonov did go on to reorganize the team, and they did go on to win the next 2 Olympics. So it is a story of really hockey excellence. And like you said, Fetisov is so charismatic.
Yeah. It's what I like about documentaries. You come away, you've learned something. I'm not a hockey person. I mean, we have in Columbus, Ohio, a terrific hockey system. And the Blue Jackets, and we have one of the best arenas in the country. And, you know, this is the kind of film that makes me want to go to those games.
Right, it's a great game.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, and so documentaries do this, and I don't come away thinking that I've been finessed at all. Except in the case of where I wanted to know more about 1980 and the choice of Fetisov for the central character here.
Right.
It's just brilliant.
And these hockey players are lured, of course, by the NHL to come to the United States for more freedom of time, the luxuries that we offer here. And
how does that work out?
Not in the beginning, because you know when Fetisov finally did make it to the United States, he was not, you know, welcomed with open arms, because the United States players didn't trust the Ruski, and
also
he had a different technique of playing hockey.
Well, exactly. The Americans just couldn't identify with the way the Russians played hockey, and the way they played hockey was that mixture of chess and ballet, and very difficult, highly intuitive.
And some of the most difficult scenes for me was the American team members slamming this new rookie Ruski up against the wall, and Russians didn't play hockey like that.
No.
But as everyone knows here, that's part of our game here, is just the brutality of it. But Fetisov touches on how hard it was to leave his homeland and his really best friends and teammates behind.
Yeah, and he loses his best friend
over
that defection.
Yeah.
Well, Linda Baas McClelland, the name of the movie is Red Army, and I'm going to ask you to lead with your grade.
Okay. I loved it. I was thoroughly entertained by it, and I'm going to give it an A.
Oh, Linda.
Definitely.
Oh, I hate to agree with you, but yes, in fact, I'm going to award it an A too. But don't forget, the Leviathan is out there, and you can sense from Linda and my commentary, it can be polarizing as a film.
Yes, indeed.
But both of them remind me of how great Russian cinema has been and continues to be. And if you listen to Cinema Classics in the next few weeks, Johnny DiLoretto and I are going to be tackling, or at least kind of giving a survey of Russian cinema based upon the two movies that we have talked about today, Leviathan and Red Army.
But in the meantime,
yes,
let's have a shot of vodka, strap on some skates, and hit the ice, John.
Oh, I love it.